Good morning. Welcome back to Empty Cloud. Hello, Ashok, Richard. We'll give it a few minutes for people to come in. Morning, Gita. Morning, John. Morning, Mew, Matthias, Hilasanu, Manal. All right. Sud. So, good morning, or afternoon, or evening, or wherever you are. We are going to do a Sutta study today. We're going to do a Sutta study on Majjhima Nikaya number 143, Advice to Anathapindika. So most of you probably know the story of Anathapindika, who Anathapindika is. So Anathapindika was whatever you want to call it. You want to say Bill Gates, Elon Musk, what's the Amazon guy, whoever, like rich billionaire you want to think of today. Anathapindika was like the billionaire of his time. He was like the most richest guy. And this name, Anathapindika, actually his name is not Anathapindika. This name was a moniker, was a nickname given to him by the people of the city that he lived in. And by the name you shall know his deeds. So Anathapindika means giver of alms to the poor. Right? So this is a person who was very, very, very rich, but also very, very, very generous. This is even before he met the Buddha. This is this was something that he was well versed in, well trained in. And once he met the Buddha, obviously, once he had contact with the Buddha and the monastics, then of course he also was very, very generous to them. And we have the the story has come down to us of we have the sutta starting here. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Okay. So Anathapindika's monastery. The story behind this is that Anathapindika was so filled with faith in the Buddha and the Sangha that he wanted to purchase a grove, to have a grove for them to come to stay in outside of the city. And he wanted to, he offered to get the property of Jeta. Jeta was a prince. And so Jeta wouldn't sell it because he really liked the grove. But Anathapindika was quite insistent. And because of that insistence, eventually Jeta said, okay, if you can carpet the whole ground of this grove with gold coins, then it's yours. And so Anathapindika said, all right, let's do it. And he carpeted the whole ground of the grove with gold coins. And then Anathapindika, Jeta's grove, Anathapindika's monastery was born. And we see this as one of the Anathapindika was the foremost male disciple of generosity, a supporter of the Buddha and the Sangha. So this rightly is taking place in Anathapindika's monastery. Now at that time, the householder Anathapindika was sick, suffering, gravely ill. He addressed the man. Please, mister, go to the Buddha in my name, bow with your head to his feet, say to him, Sir, the householder Anathapindika is sick, suffering, gravely ill. He bows with his head at your feet. Then go to Venerable Sariputta, and in my name bow with your head to his feet. Say to him, Sir, the householder Anathapindika is sick, suffering, gravely ill. He bows with his head to your feet. This is something you also see in the suttas, kind of having a third party, a go-between, pay respects to, to a person. And even amongst these days, amongst the monks, if you're talking to another monk and they're going to visit a senior monk, you say, oh, please, send my regards, pay my respects to Bhante for me. Right? This is a very ancient culture, ancient tradition. Okay. Welcome, Kevin, Amaranta, Rick, Metika, Yankee, Usha, and Diego. Welcome. All right. Okay, so, Sir, the householder Anathapindika is sick, suffering, gravely ill. He bows with his head to your feet. And then say, Sir, this is to Sariputta, Sir, please visit him at his home out of compassion. Yes, sir, the man replied. He did as Anathapindika asked. And then it says, Sariputta consented in silence. Then the Venerable Sariputta robed up in the morning, and taking his bowl and robe, went with Venerable Ananda as his second monk to Anathapindika's home. He sat down on the seat spread out and said to Anathapindika, I hope you're keeping well, householder. I hope you're all right. And I hope the pain is fading, not growing. That its fading is evident, not its growing. And this is, again, something that you see often in the suttas, where, even the Buddha will say this often. It's like, I hope that, he had the habit of greeting, greeting monks as they came in on the journey. And he says, I hope that you have found food, your alms, and that you're faring well and things like that. And as somebody who was a convert for a long time, I kind of thought, well, like hoping and stuff, that's like silly. That what is that? That has nothing to do with anything. Like, what is that? And then as I started to read the suttas and I see like the Buddha and people saying this, I was like, oh, it's just a warm wish. Right? It's just like, kind of like, I hope that things are going better for you. Right? It's just like a wish that things go good for somebody. And so here we go. Sariputta is, saying, I hope things are going better. And then, of course, Anathapindika responds, I am not keeping well, Master Sariputta. I am not all right. The pain is terrible and growing, not fading. Its growth, not fading, is evident. The winds piercing my head are so severe, it feels like a strong man drilling into my head with a sharp point. The pain in my head is so severe It feels like a strong man tightening a tough leather strap around my head. The winds slicing my belly are so severe, like a deft butcher or their apprentice were slicing open a cow's belly, open with a meat cleaver. The burning in my body is so severe. It feels like two strong men grabbing a weaker man by the arms to burn and scorch him on a pit of glowing coals. That's how severe the burning is in my body. I am not keeping well, Master Sariputta. I am not all right. The pain is terrible and growing, not fading. Its growing, not its fading, is evident. That's why, householder, you should train like this. I shall not grasp the eye, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the eye. So what does this mean? Let's go to the Pali. Na chakung upadhyasami, na cha me chakuni sittang vinyanang bhavissati. Na chakung eye, upadhyasami, appropriates for oneself, right? To take as one's own. So first line is, it's translated here by Bhante Sujato as I shall not grasp at the eye. You can take it directly as, this eye is not mine. I do not grasp at this eye. I do not take it as mine, as me, myself. Nacha me chakunis itang vinyanang bhavissati. So, and neither is consciousness at the eye dependent on the eye, right? So this is saying that all of the, basically what Sariputta is saying here is pointing towards letting go of all identification and attachments with the eye. And we're going to see this as a theme as we go along here. That's how you should train. You should train like this. I shall not grasp the ear, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the ear. I shall not grasp the nose, and there shall be no conscious of mind dependent on the nose. You could also translate it as no consciousness dependent on the nose comes to be. I shall not grasp the tongue, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the tongue. I shall not grasp the body, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the body. These eyes are not mine. These ears are not mine. This nose is not mine. This tongue is not mine. I shall not grasp the mind, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the mind. That's how you should train. You should train like this. So we just did, Bhante Sariputta goes over the internal sense bases, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and saying you should train not identifying with them, not attaching to them. And now he moves to the external sense bases. You should train like this. I shall not grasp at sight, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on sight. So the eye is not mine, nor is the sight, nor is the form. What the eye is observing, it's not mine. I do not need to identify with it. I do not need to grasp it as mine. I shall not grasp at sound, smell, taste, touch, thought. There shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on thought. That is how you should train. So we've gone over the internal and external sense bases, and now we're moving towards consciousness and then contact as per dependent origination. You should train like this. I shall not grasp at I consciousness, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on I consciousness. And one thing I think that should be understood here is that the Buddha, Sariputta here is not saying you should only think about the consciousness that is yours, that is unconnected to anything else. No. What he's saying is here, there's no consciousness, letting go of all consciousness with all of these things. Right? This is not me. This is not mine. This is not myself. Not attaching to any of it. And it's not a coincidence that Master Sariputta, Bhante Sariputta says, not getting better. Probably not going to make it. Here's a teaching. I shall not grasp at ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, mind consciousness, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on consciousness. That's a fun line, isn't it? This is how you should train. So, when three things come together, the I forms an I consciousness, what is there? Well, there's contact. So, you should train like this. I shall not grasp at eye contact. Ear contact. Nose contact. Tongue contact. Body contact. Mind contact. And there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on mind contact. That is how you should train. And with the arising of contact comes the arising of feeling. You should train like this. I shall not grasp at feeling born of eye contact. This feeling is not me, not mine, not myself. I don't need to identify with it. I can let it go. Feelings born of ear contact, feelings born of nose contact, feeling born of tongue contact, feeling born of body contact, feeling born of mind contact. And there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the feeling born of mind contact. That is how you should train. You should train like this. I shall not grasp at the earth element, the water element, the fire element, the air element, the space element, consciousness element, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the consciousness element. Also another interesting one. That's how you should train. And so Sariputta is going through all the different possible avenues that someone might attach to. These things are not. No. These definitely not mine. I don't identify with these, but this one, yes. This is it. And Sariputta says, this is how you should train. I shall not grasp but form, feeling, perception, choices, consciousness. 5 aggregates. So not grasping to anything of the 5 aggregates. Not identifying with the 5 aggregates. It is indeed when we identify and cling to the 5 aggregates, when we make upadana khandhas, that we create our own suffering. We create identity, and identity equals suffering, according to the teaching of the Buddha. You should train like this. I shall not grasp the dimension of infinite space, the dimension of infinite consciousness, the dimension of nothingness, the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. And there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. That is how you should train. You should train like this. I shall not grasp this world, and there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on this world. That is how you should train. So, to understand this a little bit, I want to explain a little bit about tanha, craving, right? Our thirst. The Buddha says that there is a kamoga. Kamoga means oga is flood, kama like sensuality. So kamoga is like a flood of sensual pleasures. We're totally immersed in a flood of sensual pleasures, and we chase after them our whole life. We are infatuated with the world that seemingly provides all of our sensual pleasures, our pleasant experiences. And then when it comes to the end of life, well, we're not ready to go. We're not ready to, we haven't let go of chasing after all these wonderful, swimming in the kamoga. We're not done yet. And that propels us to the future life. What do you think Sariputta is trying to get Anathapindika to do here? Is it starting to make sense? Don't identify with any of these things. Let it go. Don't identify with the world. Let it go. Where do you think this is going? I shall not grasp this world, and there will be no consciousness of mind dependent on this world. That is how you should train. You should train like this. I shall not grasp the other world, like wanting to go to heavens. Like, I want to go. Really want to go to heavens. May I go to heaven, enjoy many, many lifetimes of heaven. Right? Shall not grasp the other world. And there shall be no consciousness of mind dependent on the other world. That's how you should train. You should train like this. I shall not grasp whatever is seen, heard, thought, known, sought, and explored by my mind. So whatever my mind wants to go out and fiddle-faddle all around and Like how when I do my guided meditations, I say your mind will get bored from the breath and will want to go across the world, across the galaxy, to the past or the future. Right? Your mind likes to do that. And so not to grasp to any of these phenomena of the mind, thoughts that are coming in, all of these things. That's how you should train. When he said this, Anathapindika cried and burst out into tears. Venerable Ananda said to him, "Are you failing, householder? Are you fading, householder?" So I was like, "Are you dying? What's going on?" And now we come to the point where I think is really outside of the deep Dhamma. So Sariputta is giving a technique, a teaching of how we should be on our deathbed, right? Even if we aren't advanced meditators, trying to let it go, right? When we trying to let anything, any kind of attachment, any type of grasping, even, we might have our children and our family and our relatives, and we might worry, oh, if I go, they'll be sad, these kind of things. I've experienced this. I've seen people kind of stick around just because of family that wasn't able to let them go, right? But you have to let all of that go eventually. One day you will let it go. So this teaching is the Buddhist teaching is to practice doing this while you're young and alive. But you also practice doing this when you're dying, right? Let it all go. And you never know what might happen. There's lots of experiences in the suttas. You see that the death process, I think, can be a very profound not avenue, profound place for the possibility of some kind of development of insight. So we can see here. So let's keep going. So Anathapindika has broken down crying. This is another very, very important thing here, right? This one sutta kind of goes against a lot of basic Buddhist tradition that has come down. So listen to this. "No, sir," Anathapindika says, "but for a long time I have paid homage to the Buddha and the esteemed mendicants. Yet I have never before heard such a Dhamma talk." And of course, Western converts are like, "What do you mean you never heard such a Dhamma talk? You just go read it in the suttas." But this is a very different time, right? And this might be something that people who are born in Buddhist countries, they might think, "Oh yeah, I've never heard this before." And so Sariputta says, "Householder, it does not occur to us to teach such a Dhamma talk to white-clothed lay people." So it's like, well, this is kind of advanced. We don't think about teaching this to lay people. Rather, we teach this to those who have gone forth, to monastics. And so Anathapindika pleads, "Well then, Master Sariputta, let it occur to you to teach such a Dhamma talk to white-clothed lay people." So Anathapindika is giving a call out through the ages. Teach the Dhamma in full to lay people. Don't hold back. Don't think, well, they won't get it. Teach the Dhamma in full to lay people. It's quite beautiful. And here Anathapindika repeats Brahma Sahampati's phrase from when after the Buddha first became awakened, when he was faltering on whether he was going to teach. What does Anathapindika say? "There are gentlemen with little dust in their eyes. They're in decline because they haven't heard the teaching. there will be those who understand the teaching. A powerful request. Please share this Dhamma with the lay people. Don't think that there won't be people who understand. There will be. And when the Venerable Sariputta and Ananda had given the householder Anathapindika this advice, they got up from their seat and left. Not long after they had left, Anathapindika passed away and was reborn in the Tusita heavens. So the joyful gods here, or radiant. Oh, no, that's not radiant God. Then, late at night, the glorious god Anathapindika, lighting up the entire Jeta's grove, went up to the Buddha, bowed, stood to one side, and addressed the Buddha in verse. This is indeed that Jeta's grove, frequented by the Sangha of hermits, where the king of Dhamma stayed. It brings me joy. So this is another good example of what the Buddha wants us to do, right? What does the Buddha encourage us to do? Practice sila nusati, reflecting on our good deeds. So Anathapindika has passed away, been reborn as a deva, and comes back to meet with the Buddha, and he sees the park, right? That he paid for, and that he upkept, and that so many wise beings spent so many years in. And it brings him joy. Like, oh, this is so good. This place has been the center of so much good for people. Like, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You reflect on your good deeds. Deeds, knowledge, and principles. Kamma vidya cha dhammo cha. So our actions, kamma, vidya, knowledge, and dhamma, principles. Yeah. Ethical conduct and excellent livelihood. By these are mortals purified, not by clan or by wealth. You could take that clip out, that 4 lines, and then you can use that as a guide for life, and you do pretty well. Deeds, knowledge, and principle, ethical conduct, and excellent livelihood. By these are mortals purified. That's why an astute person, seeing what's good for themselves, would examine the teaching rationally and thus be purified it. Sariputta has true wisdom, ethics, and also peace. Any mendicant who has crossed over can, at best, equal him. This is what the god Anathapindika said, and the teacher approved. Then the god Anathapindika, knowing that the teacher approved, bowed and respectfully circled the Buddha, keeping him on his right, before vanishing right there. Then when the night had passed, the Buddha told the mendicants all that had happened. When he had spoken, Venerable Ananda said to the Buddha, Sir, that god must surely have been Anathapindika, for the householder Anathapindika was devoted to Venerable Sariputta. Good, Ananda. You've reached the logical conclusion, as far as logic goes. For that was indeed the god Anathapindika. That is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the Venerable Ananda was happy with what the Buddha said. Respect the sutta. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, question time. All right. Sud has a question. It's the only question here. Why is this new for Anathapindika? Since he was a stream enterer, wouldn't he probably already have directly seen this stuff already, since he will have seen Nibbana? You get a glimpse of Nibbana, but you still have 7 fetters left. Right? This is the thing about a stream enter. People kind of make stream enters out to be a bit more advanced and holy than they are. Right? There's still even with Sakkaya Ditthi, identity view. Right? There's still they've abandoned that fetter, but they still have the conceit I am. Right? They still haven't fully understood yet anatta. And it could also be related to that question that, I haven't heard this before, could also be related to the fact of trying to do this specific technique or teaching of letting it all go like that. I mean, obviously, the only person who can fully not identify with all of those things is an arahant. Even a non-returner still has identity, still feels I am. There's still a little bit of residual there. Matthias says, to me, this sutta it points at the moment. Is it also about letting go what happens during, after death when one is dying? Yeah, no, this is about while the person, this teaching obviously could be used at any time, but it was used specifically for dying here. The whole kind of speaking everything is at any moment and all these things, this is not really something you see in the suttas. Like trying to identify various things with little mind moments and every second and such like this. So this is why you don't see myself speak in such ways, because the Buddha doesn't speak in such ways. But this was a specific teaching. Obviously, the whole practice, all of these things, is leading towards abandoning, not attaching to all of these things. But this was kind of a how shall I say, like a Sariputta giving Anathapindika like a last minute Hail Mary pass. Like a last minute, all right, that you've come to the end. Let's see, you've done all these good things. You've listened to lots of Dhamma. Let's see if we can't get you a little further with that little last kick, right? When you're about to die. Amaranta asks, I want to ask about contact. We suppose not to grasp, so contact happens in our practice is not to grasp or contact or control the contact. Correct. Yeah, all of these processes, feeling, right? Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, contact, all of these processes are automatic processes. You have a machine, and the machine is doing its job, right? You have a sense organ. The sense organ is doing its job. It's making contact with the outside world so you can maneuver and manipulate and live in it. That's just normal. That's just what the body does. The thing is to not attach to it, not to take it as me, mine, myself. Even an awakened being is going to have contact, right? They see somebody comes and sits in front of them, right? So they observe, they see the person, and then they say, Bhante, I have a question. They hear the person, they have contact. It's all there. The idea is that they have abandoned any attachment to it and any identification to it, all these processes, as some kind of permanent soul, some kind of me, mine, myself. So all of these are just simple natural processes that are playing out. And Sud has a fairly related question. Basically, so how does one go about one's day trying to let go of eye consciousness, etc.? You have to engage in activity, especially as a layperson, or is it just reserved for sitting meditation and perhaps reserved for the time of death? No. This is, this is an ongoing practice. Years ago, before I went to live at Bhavana to become a monastic, I was visiting for 3 years before that, doing retreats. And Bhante Silananda, who's a senior Sri Lankan monk, who I have lots of metta for and who I got to spend many years with, would teach applying the 6 factors to anything that you experience. He taught it in while you're doing meditation, but he also said you can do this anytime to anything that you experience. And what are the 6 factors? Everything is impermanent. Everything is suffering. Everything is not soul, not self. This is not me. This is not mine. This is not myself. So whatever happens, whatever arises, a smell arises and you like it or dislike it, well, this smell is impermanent. This smell is dukkha. This smell is anatta. This smell is not me, not mine, not myself. And so you are, even if you don't believe it yet, what you're doing is applying, you're building a habit and questioning. You're setting up a question. Well, I take this as me. This is mine. And because I take this as me and mine, automatically, it's like a little kid is like walking a huge dog, and then there's a cat, and the huge dog goes flying off, and then the kid gets dragged, is dragged by the dog. That's what happens to us. We have an experience, and automatically we're dragged to, this is mine, and so now I suffer because of it. This is the nature of things. So, for the average person, you might, trying to focus on something like eye consciousness or like trying to focus on something that's quite more refined will be hard. But just what to focus on is the experience of the eye, this organ. This organ sees something. It has contact with something. And then what? It has a sensation. It's a pleasant experience, an unpleasant experience, or a neutral experience. And then we have thirst and craving. If it's a pleasant experience, we want more of it. If it's an unpleasant experience, we don't want to have to deal with it. And you can observe that process thousands of times in a day. You're doing it all the time. As long as you're awake and conscious, you're doing it all the time. So when you are investigating something, try to see it. Try to find a me, a mind behind it. Try to. See if you can find it. What about this body is mine? What about this mind is mine? What about this experience is me? Use those as lines of investigation. Matthias has a question. Sila Nusati, which is beautiful to use. Thinking faculty was good. What good one has done. So does it still mean to use the faculties, but not to grasp, for example, Sila Nusati? Yeah. Well, the other thing to clarify in here is the Sila Nusati part is after Anathapindika has become a deva, right? So it's this is in the second part of the sutta, as opposed to the beginning part. But yeah, ideally you let go of all of these things, right? Ideally, it's an interesting thing, but you realize, at least the way it went in my experience, is first I started to understand that these things were not me, not mine. And then years later, I realized, well, even though they're not really, I see that they're really not me, and I don't need to identify with them. I technically have fed them in the past, right? So the processes in the past have been pleasant experience arises. I like it. I want more of it. And I feed it. I think about it. It's like feeding the fire. And then it gets stronger. And then when causes and conditions are ripe again, it comes back. So the later insight for me was to realize, oh, wait, yeah, even though, I don't identify with this, but I'm still the cause of it, right? I have fed this, not only in past lifetimes, but I remember feeding this in this lifetime. So why don't I this time starve it? Give it no energy, give it no attention. Just let it be. And then it gets weaker. You've not given it more momentum, like pushing a kid on a swing, right? You just let it go. And what happens? Well, the swing slows. It's a pendulum. Slows until it stops. And then you're awakened. All right. So that looks like the end of questions online. Any questions in the monastery? No? All right. So I think we're good. Okay, friends. Well, join us later tonight, 7:30 p.m. New York time, for monk chat with Aya and myself. Bhante Siraso is still out. He'll be back on Saturday. So he'll be back for the streams next week. So join us for monk chat tonight. And until we meet again, may you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice. Sukhi hotu, may you be happy and at ease.